you think in your head you build yourself a lot of barriers and a lot of challenges, and you kind of overthink a lot of things, and then in the end it's actually quite easy and quite simple to do, and you're just like, oh, I thought this was going to be so much more complicated than it was in the end, basically.
Hello and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space. I am on a mission to scour the globe to find and interview the most brilliant mindset coaches, sales strategists, and business leaders alive, and present them in a way that landscapers, hardscapers, and outdoor living pros can immediately put them into use to grow and thrive. On Outer Spaces, we are passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow, and through my 27 years of dirt under the nails experience, I look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello, welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. And this week on the show, I have a young man. His name is Alexander Holm, and he happens to be my nephew. He lives in Germany, and he has a great story to share. He, at the age of 20 to 21, had the opportunity to backpack through Vietnam and Cambodia all by himself. And I wanted to share this story with you because when I was about that age, I really, in my heart, wanted to be able to just pack up a backpack and head somewhere in South America or Europe and just discover the world and discover myself along the way. And he had that opportunity. And he comes on the podcast this week to share the different challenges that he faced in those countries and how he grew during that time. And also, we talk a lot about how his parents and the way they raised him set him up for success during this trip. So guys out there, if your parents raising kids and you want to make sure they have the best opportunities in life and they have they're equipped for the world that's coming at them, this is the episode for you. Hey, Alexander, I am so excited to have you on the show here. Not only are you family, but you did something that I wished I would have done when I was 20. And we spent a lot of time this summer, listeners, out up in family vacation in Iceland, and we sat next to each other in a bus and we were chatting about this adventure that Alexander took this year. And he's, between his 20 and 21st year of life. And so I wanted to bring him on the show here and just have him unpack what he learned. So he took a trip by himself to Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia for, he'll tell you how long, for a while. And he had to kind of figure life out and do all those fun things. So I'd love to unpack with him today about what he learned about himself on that journey and some of the challenges he had to overcome. So Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh, for inviting me. So it was actually quite a long time. I've been gone, I think 6 months in total. But there were a lot of different places I've went. I think maybe we should start from the beginning together and kind of walk through the different countries I've been to and the experiences I've made there.
Absolutely, shoot.
Yeah, so I think I had a kind of nice start to the whole experience because I was kind of given the easy start, if you could say so, because I was started in Thailand with my family on a diving trip first for 2 weeks. And after that, my parents just went home again. So I didn't kind of start it completely on my own, but kind of with my family. And that kind of made it a lot easier to just be, okay, I've seen this island before. I've been here in Thailand already for now 2 weeks. So it feels a bit more natural to just be like, okay, I've been here, and then they just leave, and you're just, okay, now you have to figure everything out on your own. And I can still remember this time where I'm standing at the pier and waving my parents goodbye and saying also goodbye to my family, but also to a new life now, being like, okay, I'm here on my own now. Okay, what do I do now? Before I had a plan, I've been diving, I've set things that are in the plan, and now you have to make your own plans, right? And I had kind of a little bit of guidelines because my father had booked a flight for me to another city or something because he was planning on me to go there. But other than that, I was just now figure out what you want to do. And first was okay, I want to have a motorcycle because that was what I've seen what others did on the island. But that was actually the thing that my parents said, or my father said, don't get a motorcycle, don't get a scooter, it's way too dangerous. But of course, that's exactly what you do, right? You're not supposed to do that, and then you do exactly what you shouldn't do. Because you want to challenge the boundaries, right? And now you're on your own, so kind of nobody can stop you. And, as it has to go, people who tell you you should do it probably tell you that because of a reason and because they've experienced it before. And my father's case, it was because he had a motorcycle accident at some point in time.
Mm.
And well, I actually just ran into the trap and did the same thing like 2 days later. Um, so you learn and you see, okay, maybe there was a reason why he said, don't get a motorcycle. And maybe also because I took the biggest motorcycle you could get and straight went to the mountains and off-road and dirt biking in my flip-flops and bathing trunks and open shirt, which was probably not the best protection clothing. But yeah.
Exactly why your dad told you not to do that. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but then there are two options after that, right? You say either now I'm fucking scared of going on a motorcycle again and will never do it again, or you're like, okay, that was stupid. Why did I fall? And what could I have done better to not hurt myself that bad when I fall, basically.
Yeah.
And there you have some options again. Learn from your mistakes or be completely scared of it for the future. But for me, it was the decision of definitely getting on the bike again. And later my trip in Vietnam, I did it for over 5,000 kilometers. So
Yeah, I love following your track record there on Instagram. You would post new things each and every day as you were moving around, and I just, was living vicariously through you. And what I thought was really interesting was the fact that you would budget. You'd show what your budget was each and every day and how much food and all that kind of stuff and gas. And I was amazed by how inexpensive it was for you to travel. Could you tell us a little bit about how you set that budget up and how you kept to it?
Yeah, 100%. So kind of that's a thing that I learned quite fast in my travel was like how cheap it was and how to kind of budget, because the first time around I didn't have much money. I just had the money that I saved up, and the easiest way for me was just to go to the ATM and pull out a fixed amount. I think I took out like 2,000 baht or something every time, and the exchange rate is like 35 to 1. So it was not that much money, but then like kind of having a idea of, okay, I've pulled out money like 4 days ago or 5 days ago. Now I have to pull out money again because you pay everything in cash, and thereby you had a bit of a kind of understanding, okay, how many days you can go with how much money. That was kind of a good rule of thumb in the beginning. The second time around when I was traveling, I had like talked to some friends at home who had been backpacking as well, and they recommended like a app for me, which was using a lot, where then was like putting my budget in, like how long I'm planning on traveling, and then putting a kind of a set budget for my day. And then you could write into the app, now I've spent so and so much on my hostel, so and so much on gas and the motorcycle. And then you get a pretty good idea of how much your budget is for the day, which if you want to live really cheap in Thailand and Cambodia and stuff, you can live for around $35 a day. But if you kind of spend a bit more and do a bit more of the exciting stuff, you can also live really goodly off like $45-50 a day. So then you're really going on all the trips you want to. You're going climbing, you're going on the boat trip, you're going drinking and doing partying and whatever you want to. And you basically have easily enough money to do all the stuff you want. So
yeah, I was amazed by how far you could stretch the dollars, right? And how far you could go with that. And just to see the cool adventures you were on. So why don't you take our listeners back? Who is Alexander? Maybe a quick version of kind of like where you come from and what you're studying in school and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm actually from Hamburg, or my trip began basically after I finished high school, and then I was with my family traveling, and then I did a whole year of gap where I was, as we said, in Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and Indonesia, and then also working as a ski and snowboard instructor in Austria. And now I'm back to Europe again, but this time around I'm in Copenhagen now studying at CBS, which is called Copenhagen Business School, where I'm studying a quite interesting program called Business Administration and Digital Management, which is basically a IB in business, and then it just focuses a bit more on the digital aspects, kind of getting into digital systems and programming as well a bit.
That's awesome. And do you like it?
I actually like it quite a lot. Of course, in the beginning, it's a bit like a big jump from high school where you're like, okay, there's actually quite a lot more to read now and quite more pressure on. But of course, you have to grow, and the best way is by pressure.
Absolutely, dude. And what I thought was interesting is when you were, I don't know what age, you can tell me, but you actually launched a product to sell and you procured it with foreign, creators and makers. And you were, so tell us a little bit about the product that you produced and started selling on, I think it was on Amazon, wasn't it?
Yeah, correctly. So that was basically pretty much during COVID when that just popped around. I was like a bit bored because your activities that you would do usually like sports and hanging with the friends and stuff were quite limited at that point in time. So I was a lot more on my computer and then watching YouTube videos, and then I came around some people talking about Amazon FBA and how you can source products. In China and get them produced through Alibaba, and then bring them to Europe, import them, and then sell them over here. And I was 17 and a half at the time when I found out about it. And then I founded my company actually basically the day when I turned 18. And it took like around a year to get like everything together, from figuring out what product I want to produce, finding the best producer, the best way to ship the products, which actually you normally don't think about it, but there's quite a lot of detail to figuring out which shipping plan is also the best and where it's going to be shipped to, and if it's
Yeah.
going to be by flight or by boat, or a lot of stuff that you think, oh yeah, I'm just going to do that, and then there's so much more detail and so much more complexity to it than you actually think about in the first hand.
Always, always, dude. And so you were 18, you launched your first product on Amazon. How did that go for you?
Well, actually, to be quite honest, I thought, let me just produce 3,000 products and just do great marketing and make a cheaper price, and then it will just sell off like hot hot chocolate or something. But the real world experience is then that it's quite a lot harder to sell the things that you just think, oh, it's just going to be so easy. And in the beginning, you're like having this big dream, oh, it's going to be so easy and everything's just going to work out. But then you
Yeah.
fall on your face like, oh, okay, there's so much ad spend, and that's actually eating a lot of away from my profits. And then you get your products, and you're looking at your products, and well, they look great 90% of the time, but there's like, it's a wooden product, so then you look at it and, oh, there's a minor imperfection here and then a minor imperfection there, and then you like have to look through all of them again, even though you thought that you didn't calculate for that amount of work to be done as well, to figure out which products actually fit your standard of quality. And then you have to source out like 10% of them, which also again increases the product price. So in the end, it was not profitable, but luckily I went into the adventure with the mindset of either this goes very well and it works and I make some money off of it, or I spend some money on it, but then at least I've learned a lot and maybe failed in the first attempt, but then there's the possibility to grow on the next attempt, basically.
I love that, dude. And it's so true. It's so true. That's how life is, man. It's never a straight line. Not many can just, swing and hit it right out of the fence first time out of the back. So it's so cool you did it. And what you created was for the listeners out there, was a cable management device that helped keep your cables organized on your desk. And it's a really beautiful item that he created there. And but I just loved watching him at 18 being like, you know what, I'm going to just outsource this to China. They're going to ship my stuff in here. We're going to, sell it through Amazon. We're going to and I was just like, that is at 18. I didn't have that. Obviously we didn't have that opportunity when I was 18. There was dinosaurs running around, but point is that it's a big different world right now. But I love that you have that spark of entrepreneurship inside of you. And, it's exciting to see where you'll take what you've learned from here and moved on. So what do you think you'll do with what you've learned so far?
Well, kind of the next thing that I kind of tried to do, which you already kind of talked about, was trying to post like videos on social media, right? Like when you're traveling and you're there, pick up your GoPro, pick up your drone and your phone, and make some videos and try to create something using that. And then again, you run into a lot of problems like, okay, now I'm filming this and now I have all this video material, but how do I get it from my phone or from my camera or my laptop? How do I transfer all this stuff? And then you figure out, oh, it actually takes quite a lot of time and effort to make all of these videos, cut them together, make sure that the sound is right, the music fits as well. And then you figure out, or at least I figure out in that point in time, okay, I want to enjoy my travels and I want to travel a lot, but I love filming. That is so much fun and it's a real passion of mine. But this whole editing stuff and putting music underneath, it's just tiring for me, and I don't really enjoy doing that. So then I was kind of on this hunt of finding a person who's kind of maybe able to help me do this. And by coincidence, I was so lucky to find a guy when I was in a hostel who I talked to who was doing e-commerce, and I was just asking, do you by any chance like know some person who's like able to edit and maybe can do it for not that much money? And he gave me Instagram contact of a person living in Thailand, and she was very good at editing videos and could do that for like $5 or $6 for like a reel or short on Instagram, which was perfect for me because for me, if I would take me 1 or 2 hours to make this video, it would be totally worth it for me to pay like $6 in
Oh,
order
yeah.
for her to do it for me. And she was even way better than me at it, and she loved doing it. So it was kind of a win-win situation again at this point. And then it's like this outsourcing, which I also had with Amazon or the products that I produce in China, where you learn like, okay, if you're not yourself really good at it, or this is not the part of the job that you really enjoy doing, say yourself, okay, I'm not the best man for this job. Let me rather outsource this and give this to someone else who is way better at it and enjoys it even more.
And dude, for you to learn that at 20, 18, 20, 21 years old is incredible because I know it took me way too long to realize that. I thought, you know what, I'm the only one who can do this well. So I'm just going to keep doing this. And then I got stuck doing the thing that I didn't like to do over and over again until I realized there's other people out there that are a hell of a lot better at it than I am. And they actually find joy in the things that I just don't want to do. So getting them on your team is important, but it's awesome that you've picked it up. And now with the world being a global marketplace, you know, you can tap people in, Thailand or Cambodia or whatever and be like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to cut some video. They love it because it helps them support their families. You love it because you don't have to do it. It's a win-win, right? I just think it's a great way to be able to help. So I'd like to switch gears and go back into your adventure. And I'd love to know what did you learn about the culture when you were in Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia? Like, what did you learn about the culture there coming from Germany into that environment? I know you've been there before, but what are some things, some takeaways you got about the differences?
Well, kind of the thing that stunned me the most was how happy the people kind of were. And maybe it's a kind of a weird thing, but it's a feeling of they are, even though they do like quite simple jobs sometimes, or maybe they don't earn that much, which is really crazy, of course. Kind of linking back to the reason why it is so cheap to travel down there is because sometimes the people in the hostels where you live like make $1 or $2 an hour working there, which is kind of the reason. But even though they make so little, sometimes it's interesting to see how happy they are and how they're smiling the whole time and how they're really friendly and just kind of very positive about life in a very interesting way. Whereas when you sometimes look in Germany, like when people walk around the supermarket or something with kind of grumpy faces on and like as if the weather was bad all the time. It's just interesting to see to me that they have such a different kind of view of life in a kind of way, which was kind of maybe the biggest kind of cultural thing for me. And also like they're very, especially in Vietnam, I've been invited like 5 or 6 times to dinner with like local families and out for a drink or something from the locals, by them reaching out to me, which kind of shows like how welcoming they are, which is also something I don't feel like you see that often, at least not at home here in Germany, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is amazing how people that have, in our perceived, value structure, less meaning less money, how that they seem to be happier. I mean, not always the case, of course. Just like lots of money doesn't make you sad, but at the same time, it is amazing how across an entire culture like that, they're happy to be alive and not so focused on the cash side of things. That's really a very interesting thing to learn. So, what did you learn about yourself when you were going through this trip?
I think that also kind of connects to the point that we've just talked about, is kind of this feeling of the happiness that I have over there, and how I felt very happy and very free in a way over there. When I was over there, I took some notes, and I was listing a lot of times a lot of the aspects of freedom that I have over there. Because normally when you go on vacation, you're like, okay, I have 7 days of vacation, and I have this and this budget, and after those 7 days, I know I'm going to be back again, and then I'm going to do this job. So now I have to make the most out of every day and do everything that I can. Right? You feel like you have kind of this time constrict of like, I have 7 days now, and that's it. Whereas when you're there for 3 months or something, you're like, well, I haven't planned what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm just going to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, take a shower, and then I'm going to be like, oh, you guys want to go climbing today? That sounds like a very great idea. Let's do that together. Oh, now we finished with climbing. Oh, let's take the scooter to the market and check out what they're doing there. You just have this kind of freedom of exploring and deciding every day what you want to do and going anywhere you want to do, because it's also so cheaply. Like renting a scooter is like €5 to €6 a day plus a minimum amount of gas. So every day you just go all the places you want to. And if you want to go climbing, it's also not a lot. So you just have this kind of very different feeling of freedom and feeling of being able to do everything each day you want to, and not being like constricted in any kind of way, and especially not time wise, which is kind of this biggest kind of eye opening thing for me, where I'm like, okay, I kind of want to be able to enjoy a lot of the time that I have on this world in this kind of manner, where I have the freedom to do all the things that I want to do. And having experienced this feeling before, kind of, I think, gives you a good opportunity for future to know what you're looking for and to know what you're seeking in life.
That's so true. And to have that space to be able to do it alone and then find friends and to do those kinds of things, as opposed to going with a structure like a family or a group of friends or something like that, is just a completely different experience. Would you agree?
100%. I've had friends who've been traveling together and who were then like, oh, we've been in a van together and we've been driving across the country or across Europe. And at some point they told me, even though they're very best friends, they got quite sick of each other at some point in time, because you're always stuck with that one person. And if she wants to go, well, you also have to go, because you're kind of stuck in the same van, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm backpacking solo through Vietnam or Cambodia or Thailand, then I'm saying to myself, okay, I want to go here, I want to go there. And then you meet great people, and sometimes you travel together for a week, sometimes 2 and sometimes 3, and sometimes you see them one day and then your paths kind of split each other again. But you have the kind of total control, because you can say, I want to go with you, or I want to stay here, I want to do this, or I don't. And kind of also this I don't want to is kind of also a kind of a strong thing to be able to say, because oftentimes we're kind of saying just saying yes because, well, why not? Because we don't really know our boundaries. But if you're like, I don't want to come along, I don't want to go there, then you're just like, oh, no, I don't need to, I'm fine where I'm right now.
Yeah. Yeah. To be able to make those decisions for yourself. It's amazing. So how about the language barrier? Is there any language barrier between you and the locals?
Well, so there's of course a lot of difference between the countries. So I feel like in Thailand and in Bali, where I was, it was pretty much fine. Also talking with the locals, they understand quite a lot of English. Especially in Thailand, they're quite good. Whereas in Cambodia and Vietnam, it's a bit more difficult. But in our modern day of age, we all have our Google Translate on our phone, and then you can kind of communicate with basically everybody. You just type it in, or actually just speak it into the phone, and then it will also just translate it and basically speak it out in another language to the Vietnamese people. So even those who can't read can then also understand you. So of course there's a language barrier in some way, but you work your way around it, and you always find a way to be able to do the stuff you want. But when you don't have internet connection, which I've had sometimes, it's quite interesting to going back to the basics and communicating with hands and feet and just pointing at stuff and then counting monies and just showing it to them, and they just pick whatever they need. So you get into some quite interesting situations, but most of the time you're doing pretty fine.
I love that. I love that. Do you have any stories around that exact thing where you have a fan of money sitting out in front? You're like, boy, I hope they don't take advantage of me right now.
Well, that kind of links pretty much perfectly back to kind of one of the only times in my travels where I felt a bit uncomfortable, or a bit like, okay, I don't really know what's going on right now, and I felt like I was not in control, which I felt like most of the time, because that was the point where I traveled from the Cambodia to Vietnam by crossing the border by foot, which is something I've actually never done really before in that kind of way, because you kind of have a physical border which you don't have in Europe. So there's like a gate and you walk through it, and then or first you drive with the bus from Cambodia to the gate, and the bus driver takes a picture of you and says, okay, I'll send that picture to the guy on the other side standing at the bus waiting for you, hopefully. And then you walk across the border, and you show your visa and your passport and everything, and they stamp you out of Cambodia. And then you walk across another strip of land, and then you scan your bags and everything again, and then you get checked into Vietnam. And then you come out on the other side, and then there's a guy standing there with a pickup truck, and you just hope he's the right guy. He didn't show you the picture, but he kind of approached you and was like, "Oh, you come," and you're like, "Okay." And you just walk into the bus, and you hope you're the right one. And I thought he was going to drive me all the way to Ho Chi Minh City, which is kind of the capital of Vietnam, where I was planning on going to. But like 10 minutes later, he dropped me off at some kind of bus station, and trying to communicate with him was quite hard because at that point in time I had just crossed the border, so I didn't have any SIM card which was working in Vietnam, and I didn't bring any Vietnamese money with me, so I only had a couple of dollars, which I was very lucky about because that way I could somehow exchange some dollars to Vietnamese money. Yeah. But yeah, then you're standing there and trying to communicate with him and trying to pay him for a SIM card, which didn't end up working. So you kind of get scammed there, but it was like $6 or something. And all the people at the bus stop also couldn't talk to you because they didn't understand you. So you were like trying to figure out which bus you're supposed to take, and then trying to buy food with the exchange money he gave you in Vietnamese dong was also funny because you're standing there with the money and you're like, just the soup, please. And they kind of figured it out and then just gave you the money back. So, and you didn't actually know how much it was worth at that point in time because you had just crossed the border, and in true backpacker fashion, you hadn't informed yourself at all about the country. So you just crossed the border and were hoping they're giving you the right stuff. But it turns out those people are actually quite nice, and they try to do their best. So you mostly don't get scammed.
No, I love it, dude. And listeners might be thinking, why the heck do you got Alexander on right now? This is more of a business podcast. Why do you do this, right? And I'm thinking, because I know there's a lot of parents out there that are, with kids that are going to either are at this age, 18 to 21, or we're going to be there soon. And that may come up in conversation, right? I know when my kids are growing up, they're 13 and 16 now, that when they get to this age, I'm hoping they say, I'm going to go do that, because the stuff that you're hearing Alexander talk about right now, the life lessons he's learning, how to figure shit out on his own, that's what the world's missing right now. The world's missing that's opportunity for young kids to fall on their face and stand up and learn and discover the true power that's inside of them and the fact that they can figure it out. That's what they're missing. And I love the fact that you've had this opportunity to do this. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on the show, because this is something I wished I would have done when I was younger, before I had the responsibility of family and all that stuff. And I'm just so happy you've had that opportunity. So what are some of the challenges that you found yourself in? I know you've had some stories here with the monies and stuff. Is there any other challenges that you found yourself in during this time that you've learned a lot from?
Of course, navigation is kind of a challenge in some way, and kind of also figuring out where do I want to go, what places do I want to see, and how do I best kind of spend my time, and kind of figuring out what do I actually want to do here. And of course, the internet is a lot of help, but also like going into hostels and talking to people, talking about what they have seen and what they have done, and then kind of creating a plan based on that. But you have, in order to do that, of course, you have to overcome the challenge of kind of being outward and kind of talking to people in the first place. If not, you're not going to get that much help properly. Yeah. Then also kind of or challenging yourself in a way of being on edge. Like when I arrived in Indonesia at the airport, the guy wanted to sell me a taxi to the place where I wanted to go for 400,000 Indonesian rupee. And then you're like, I have never encountered this money before, but that sounds too much for me. Let me just haggle about that. And then you ask like 6 more people and you just say, I'm just going to pay you 200,000, no more. And the first guy says, you're delusional. And the 7th guy says, yeah, sure, jump in. So kind of being a bit more on your edge, kind of facing those people with a bit more of like a criticism, being like, okay, maybe not. Maybe I'll try my best to kind of see if I can find something better. But then also, what challenges? In a way, actually, it's not that there's not that many challenges. I feel like, of course, like figuring out the right bus and stuff, but it's all stuff you figure out and how to transport yourself the right way and come around. But it's actually quite easy in Thailand to, for example, to get a bus or get a transport anywhere. You don't have to book anything beforehand. You just walk into the hostel and say, can I sleep here tonight? There, yeah, sure, $3. Here you go. Here's your key and good night. Like it's quite easily actually most of the time. And I was actually surprised also by sometimes how smoothly everything just worked out. Like I meet friends in Chiang Mai, and I talk to them for like 3 days, and then I tell one of the French guys, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to a Thai boxing camp for 1 week now. I'm planning on doing that." And then he says, "Oh yeah, my two mates from Britain are just leaving now, so I'm just gonna join you on that. Why not?" Like sometimes it just works out so perfectly well, better than you could have ever planned, because
Yeah.
he's just like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Let me do that as well." And you're like, in the aftermath, you think like, what if like he would have said yes, would you've been there on your own, or you wouldn't? Okay, there were of course other people, but it was quite that much more fun because I was there together with him. So you think in your head you build yourself a lot of barriers and a lot of challenges, and you kind of overthink a lot of things, and then in the end it's actually quite easy and quite simple to do, and you're just like, oh, I thought this was going to be so much more complicated than it was in the end, basically.
Isn't it funny how our minds do that? How when you start future pacing and you start thinking of the future, you think of all the problems that could come up, all the things safety, is it this, or am I run out of money? Am I going to be able to find food? Am I going to be able to find shelter? Am I going to be able to find all that stuff? And somehow it always works out. All that fear and all that craziness, you put it back and you look back about the things you worried about yesterday, about today, and you look back and you're like, why the hell did I waste the time yesterday worrying about it? Today's just fine. I'm like, so it is amazing how the mind will do that. So last question here I have for you is, how do you think that the way that your parents raised you prepared you to be able to do this? Because I know in the American culture, oftentimes you have what we call hover parents, right? Parents that are like put their kids in bubble wrap and they don't let them do anything. They make all the decisions for them. They tell them what to do, when to do it. They force them or not force them, but they kind of direct them into sports that they want to have them in, or whatever it might be, that they feel like they're doing the kid justice by kind of managing their life. Where I know, having a front row seat to how your father and mother raised you guys, I'd love to hear from you how you think that their style of parenting prepared you to be more independent and more efficient as an adult.
Well, I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because this kind of hover parenting, which you're mentioning, is quite interesting for me, because I feel like I've been raised in quite the opposite way. And actually, like, I think this is quite an American thing. Even though you say, yeah, America is the country of liberty and of freedom, I feel like it's quite the opposite. Like, children have to be parented 24/7. They can't go to the playground on their own. They can't swim on their own. They can't do anything on their own until they're like 16 years old, because their parents have to drive them everywhere they go. So they have like no freedom of experiencing and failing on their own. They are always kind of walking around with this like shield of their parents over their head, which are trying to protect them from everything. And then once they're 16, they're kind of, or but maybe a bit older, but then they kind of have to deal with all of these problems on their own, which they have never encountered in their whole life before, because they've always been so protected. But that actually creates the problem, right? Because you have never had to kind of deal with these problems on your own, and then you're not kind of able to do that because you have not practiced doing that, basically. Whereas with my parents, it's been quite the opposite, where they have focused a lot on the liberty and the trust in me to be able to do my own right decisions. And that doesn't mean that they just throw me out and let me do everything I want to, but it means like talking about the things that you maybe did wrong, or where you like come home and you're like, oh, I fell on the bicycle, or oh, I did this or that wrong, or I fell into the ice, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have gone on the ice when it's not that thick, and maybe we should have better told you that today it's rainy outside and then it's -degrees, so maybe the road might be icy, or like talking about the problems that you have and letting the kids encounter these problems. Because when I was, I don't know, 6 years old, I was walking to school on my own every day, every morning. And then I was biking to school for like 7 kilometers all the way to school and then back again. I was going into the woods and climbing on trees when I was in kindergarten, when I was like 5 or 4 years old. So I had all of these things that were dangerous around me, like a pocket knife when I was in the woods, like, okay, then I cut myself in the finger, but then I know that fucking hurts, and I should probably not sharpen my stick of wood in my own direction, but probably away from myself. Yes. And they have all of these problem situations that you run into, which you learn from and which you are encountering because you're allowed to fail and you're allowed to, do dumb stuff, basically. And then you learn from them, and then you can actually figure out how to do stuff on your own. Whereas when I was in America, I was quite surprised at the sign at the lake saying only allowed to swim with supervision, where I was like, yeah, okay, hopefully the kid doesn't drown, but still, if we teach him before how to swim, then we will have the trust in him that he can go with his
Yeah.
friends to the lake and swim on his own without us having to stand there and watch him the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it was watching you grow up. I met you when you were probably maybe 2. I'd say close to 2 or 3 maybe. And I remember meeting you and watching, your father and mother and even your siblings, how they raised you guys. And I was like, from an American's perspective, I'm like, man, like they give him a lot of space. Like there's Alexander climbing on a wall. He's walking on top. It's like a sheer cliff down one side. He's like 5 or 6 walking on top of the wall. And I'm like, oh, that makes me nervous. Right. But watching over time and understanding your parents, philosophy and all of that, and you climbing trees and being crazy. And I'm like, man, like that looks like insanity, but freedom too, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
fast forward that now at 21 years old, and the fact that you can, I believe that you could be dropped into just about any environment on the planet, and you'd figure it out because you've built those muscles your entire life. You weren't kept in a bubble and not allowed or had your parents making decisions for you. You got the freedom of making those decisions yourself and then dealing with the consequences that come from those decisions. Because isn't that life?
I 100% agree.
When do we want to let kids finally become young adults? Because that's what they turn into, right? They're not cats, they're not dogs. You know what I mean? They're young adults, they're young humans. When are we going to let them, give them space to make mistakes? I remember when Jake was young and he was climbing a hemlock tree out by the side of the house here. He's probably about 5 years old and he loved to climb everything, very similar to you, right? Loved to climb everything. And I remember sitting in the backyard, I was raking leaves and he was climbing this tree. It's probably 15, maybe 18 feet tall. And he's climbing up this thing. And I told him before he went up, I said, make sure you look for dead sticks in there because they will not support your weight. And he's climbing up this tree and he's climbing up and I saw him not clearing the sticks out. And at one point I turned around and I was probably about 20, 30 feet from him. And the stick that he's standing on broke. And he was not prepared for that. And he come tumbling down in the tree as he's kind of like tumbling down through. And at the last second, he hooked a branch. He grabbed it right before he would hit the ground. And I just walked over to him, looked at him. I said, did you clear that tree out of dead branches? He's like, no. His eyes were huge, right? And I was like, so what did you learn? He's like, to listen and to clear those dead sticks. The dude climbs. He still loves to climb, right? And he now is very aware of that. So it is a matter of making sure your kids have space to be able to learn. And yes, deal with the consequences of decisions that are made or not listened to. That's how they learn. We've got to let our kids go younger so that they can start learning what's going on in the world. Or we're going to have a bunch of kids that just constantly need to be stuck on the tit because they don't know how to make their own decisions and are constantly calling mommy and daddy for all of that or dealing with asking somebody else how to fix their problems for them when that is their damn job.
100%. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
Too much protection can also be bad.
For sure. So parents out there listening, you know what I mean? Maybe you think about giving your kids a little bit more space. Let them go out there and learn some stuff. I remember when Oliver wanted a blowtorch when he was 5 years old as well, something about 5 years old. He wanted a blowtorch because he saw me using one. And he's like, I want one of those. And I'm like thinking, you're 5. This probably won't end well. But I was like, let's see what happens. So he started to play with the blowtorch. And I was like, look, that side's hot. You only use it when I'm around for now. And we'll show you how to start a fire with it and this kind of thing in the fire pit. And he would do that. And eventually he got much smarter. And he did at one time grab the end that was bright, the hot one. And he burned his hand, but he learned and he never did it again. And now he's one of the safest, Boy Scouts you ever wanted to know with any kind of fire. He is always prepared with buckets of water next to it, watching the wind. Like he is in it to win it because he understands it because he started young with it and was able to make those mistakes. So what I'm saying is if you're out there and you're hover parenting your kids, maybe give them a little bit more space, a little bit more leash. You might be surprised with how smart they truly are and how well they'll learn. And don't rob them of this time of life where they really need to learn these life lessons so that they can become even better, stronger people in society. So Alexander, appreciate you coming on here on the podcast. Do you have any thoughts, any thoughts in your mind about, this conversation or what you learned on your trip that you think could help people?
Well, to sum it up, it's kind of just a perfect kind of show of how the liberty that I've experienced as a child and young teenager. Also, when I was 16 years old, I went to Denmark on my own on a boarding school for a whole year. Like all of this freedom that I've gotten has enabled me to be confident in myself that I can just go out there and live in Thailand or another country on my own, and have this freedom, and also kind of seek this freedom, is kind of deeply rooted in my education and how I've been raised by my parents and my family. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up pretty nicely.
I love it, Alexander. Thank you for coming on today. I know you're busy in your schooling and all that stuff, and I appreciate you taking some time and sharing with our guests here all the stuff that you've gone through, the fun things you've learned on your trip. And, listeners out there, don't rob your kids of this time. This time is so important to them. Give them some space. Let them make mistakes. Obviously, you're not going to throw them out in a big lake full of crocodiles and say swim across. That's not the point. The point is give them some space so they can make mistakes. And when you do, you're going to be amazed by the young men and the young women that come out of that kind of experience. So, everyone, talk to you next week.